Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the fragrance designer at Frank's Aromatics, and I thought we would do some videos where we talk about some of the materials that we use that you might have heard of but not be too familiar with. I thought we could start with ISOE Super, which in modern perfumery is absolutely everywhere, and for good reason. So ISOE Super is actually a trade name, or it's a brand, or like a flavor, if you like, of a group of materials known as octahydrotetramethyl acetophenones. Other trade names for this material or similar materials are Silvamber, which we'll get to in a minute. Timber Silk is also pretty popular. There's a material Isogamma Super, which is a captive compound that you can only get access to if you sort of know the right people or like in with the cool kids. All of these materials are like a soup of different isomers, and some people watching this won't know what an isomer is. So briefly, a terrible analogy would be like if your friend built a boat out of Lego and then you took the boat apart and built a car out of the same Lego pieces, and then the car would have like different properties to the boat because it's structured differently, but also similar properties because they're both made out of Lego. Chemistry is kind of like that. So these isomers, they're the same sort of set of atoms, if you like, but they're arranged molecularly in subtly different ways. Like they have different bonds, different types of bonds in different places and so on. And that's essentially how these materials that are on the market are different from one another. Because of differences in the manufacturing process that companies use to produce these materials, they all have subtly different isomer ratios, which gives them slightly different characteristics from one another, but all still within the realm of recognizability. Like they're all reminiscent of one another. In order to distinguish these isomers, they're labeled in Greek alphabetical order, so alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and so on. But it just so happens that in the case of these octahydrotetramethyl acetophenones, the gamma isomer is more desirable than the other isomers, or at least that's the popular consensus. Okay, so what does it actually smell like? Well, ISOE Super, it has like a woody, sort of velvety, little bit amberiness, not too dissimilar from maybe patchouli, but a lot cleaner, where patchouli tends to have this kind of earthiness to it that's not really present in ISOE Super. So ISOE Super has these sort of velvety, soft wood characteristics, which are somewhat reminiscent of like cedarwood and sandalwood. It's kind of light and transparent. It's super, super useful. You can use it as like the backbone, or as like part of the backbone of a fragrance, where in conjunction with things like hedione or like alpha ionone, or maybe even like cedramber, some musks, galaxolide, romandolide, these sorts of things, you can create like the foundation and then sort of add interest and intrigue from there, because all of these materials are so agreeable with not only one another but with basically everything else, and they also have like a perfuminess. We're just so used to smelling these materials in perfumes that we've now come to expect them and feel like something is off when they're not there. And Silvamber, for comparison, it's like obviously quite similar. They're very similar materials, but it's sort of amberer and like rounder, and like it has like a richness to it. It's maybe less cedary and more, I want to say, like labdanum-y. So one of the ways that I like to use ISOE Super is to kind of space out sort of noisy notes or noisy materials like cardamom essential oil, or like black pepper essential oil, or sort of, I suppose, naturals that have a lot of things going on and they can be kind of overpowering in a way, or they have spikes in them. You can kind of round those spikes out. You might think that sounds like dilution, and it's not that, but it's dilution in a very intentional and specific way, where the material that you're adding plays a role and has its own sort of flavor to bring to the table. Okay, I think that's everything. Thanks for coming. Bye. So ISOE Super